It's not a sentimental industry, believe it or not. And though the Beach Boys had essentially been Capitol's biggest money earners and kind of the central focus of their industry for 2 years, the moment that the Beatles rolled into town, they were pretty much done with the Beach Boys, even though they were still very much a hit-making force. Suddenly a lot of those guys who had been working for the Beach Boys were swept over into working for the Beatles. And Murray had to like actually physically storm into people's offices and stick his fat little fingers in their faces and tell them that they were damn well going to do this for the Beach Boys too. Look, God damn it, it's my family, and you're going to do right by us. On one hand, I think he was successful in getting more attention back on the Beach Boys at Capitol, but on the other hand, I think that he sort of became a problem for the Capitol guys, and they may have been just as eager, especially as the Beatles were having like the top 5 singles and on the American charts, they might have been just as eager for the Beach Boys to dry up and blow away just because Murray was such a pain in the ass.
As any good manager would, he just got in Capitol's face in America and just tortured them.
Murray really fought for the Beach Boys, whether it was with A&R or whether it was with promotion. He wouldn't go away. He was persistent. When he would go to the tower to see somebody, they'd hide and they'd have the secretary make excuses up for them. They'd hide under their desk because Murray was coming and they knew he wanted something or they'd done something wrong. But probably they had. They probably had, So, I had to give the old man credit for that.
Though Murray's aggressive style may have been useful in rattling cages at Capitol, it began to weigh heavily as an added pressure on the band. Having always been hands-on with his son's business, in the studio as well as in the office, his control room interventions were now stifling the maturing Brian. In a bid to break the tension, Murray was relieved of his position as the Beach Boys manager.
Well, when he finally got rid of Murray, it was a giant relief off of his back. Because it seems like Murray questioned everything that Brian wanted to do or said or suggested to the band, and they used to get in some terrible tiffs. Dad, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. You're making a fool of yourself. This kind of junk. Nobody will ever play this kind of junk.
Brian, I'm a genius too. Let's go, huh? Brian, forget who you are, will you? You think you got it made?
No, we don't.
Son?
We would like to record under an atmosphere of calmness, and you're not presenting that.
Your mother loves you. Because you guys think you have an image.
Times are changing.
Don't ever forget.
Times are changing. Yeah.
Honesty is the best policy, son.
Good.
Right, Mike? You know what I'm talking about, Mike.
Okay.
Now listen, let me tell you something.
Yes.
When you guys get so big that you can't sing from your hearts, you're going downhill.
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 He wanted to do stuff his old-fashioned way, which just didn't fit. Had nothing to do with the music that Brian was writing. And finally, Brian couldn't take it anymore, and he barred him.
With Murray out of the picture, Brian was able to assume full leadership of the group's direction. He began to conceive the first material of the post-Beatles era, with a fresh eye on song construction and a meticulous approach to sonic depth and complexity. The first installment of these labors, I Get Around, announced a giant step forward and provided the Beach Boys with their first #1 single.
That's an alarmingly cool song and revolutionary musically. It's in many ways, or very clearly, a predecessor of Good Vibrations and Smile because of the way that it's built. It's composed from very separate and in many ways non-related bits of music. It's got it's got the sort of opening sort of fuzz guitar, raw guitar sound, and then it brings in the harmonies and this kind of stop-start rhythm, and then it's got this kind of keyboard line that works in and out. It's a very early modular song.
I'm getting bugged driving up and down the same old strip. I gotta find a new place where the kids are hip. My buddies and me, you're getting real well known. Yeah, the bad guys know us and they leave us alone.
When you first heard it, you just didn't realize, how much work and how complex you know, that sound is. It's very easy to be complex and to show off, or to have people think, wow, that's complex. What's difficult is to be very complex and have every single thing you do have an emotional impact, and have the hearer not even be aware of it. Just hear it as a pop song. Hear it the first time and get it. That's hard, and that's what Brian Wilson can do. That's what a song like I Get Around can do.
From here on, you start to see these things, these little elements of construction that show that he's really thinking about what he's doing, really thinking about crafting a song. So in I Get Around, it starts with this introduction, the vocal introduction. And then as you go through the song, you realize that that chord progression and some of those sounds from the introduction are actually a condensed version of the beginning of the song. And you start to see these things over and over in Brian Wilson's songs from here on.
This sophistication served to highlight that the early Beach Boys era was drawing to a close. A new album, All Summer Long, demonstrated all the musical maturity of I Get Around, though its primary themes remained the vivid teen dreams and sandy portraits of the band's previous work. The title track would later be used to close George Lucas's 60s high school nostalgia film, American Graffiti. And if a sense of the past hung over the record, Don't Back Down proved to be the Beach Boys' last ever surf song and suggested that the group was ready to move into adulthood.
You can only sing about cars and surfing for so long. There's a kind of poignance now, there's a kind of looking back. Singing about these very sort of carefree sounding events in the course of a summer, riding horses and drinking Cokes and spilling them and doing the silly things kids do, it's with an understanding that, you know, this silliness doesn't last forever, and pretty soon life is going to get a lot more complicated. And we'll treasure this for now, but you also know that, you know, the leaves are coming off the trees and the sun's going to, you know, get low on the horizon, and, you know, things are going to seem a lot colder pretty soon.
Sitting in my car outside your door. Sitting in my car outside your door. Remember when you spilled Coke all over your blouse? T-shirts, cut-offs, and a pair of...
In a sense, the All Summer Long album managed to diversify the arrangements as far as the music goes. You started getting a larger production and a larger sound and a more full sound than the Beach Boys had ever had before. Lyrically, saying, this is what we did, this is what we've done, this is what we do best, and we're going to throw that out there and give you one big definitive statement and then move on, you know? And so I think that's what they did. They summed up their career with that album.
Oh, shit.
Why'd you do that?
I don't like that surfing shit.